Hi, I'm Erika, and this is Steve, and if you don't know, we live full-time in our RV, traveling to job sites across the United States. We mainly do construction. He's a heavy equipment operator, and I'm a laborer, and we also do hurricane relief work.
We often get asked by people what hurricane relief work entails. We're making this video to answer your questions.
We're making this video for our friends, family, people that we run into at RV parks that are interested in what we do, and we're adding a section at the end for possible recruits. This video is broken into sections, and if you're interested in our hurricane relief story, just keep on watching. We're going to put the recruiting stuff at the very end. You can jump around to the different sections in this video by looking at the description and hitting the timestamps.
If you are our friends and family watching this and didn't know we started the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button. You'll follow along in our adventures. This is not a one-off video. Let's get into the hurricane story.
Now, what everyone wants to know is, how did we get into it?
Well, this takes us back to 2017. At this time, we were still owning and operating Tri-City Motor Speedway. The season ended Labor Day weekend, which is the beginning of September. I saw a friend had a post on Facebook looking for recruits that have a CDL, flexible schedule, want to go on an adventure. I called him up and said, "What's this all about?" He says, "Well, it's hurricane relief work. You have to be able to leave at a moment's notice." He says, "Okay, you have a CDL, that's great. You don't have a hazmat certification yet," but I said, "I can get that." So I started from there. I took a fuel truck from Michigan, drove it down to Florida for Hurricane Irma. I was down there for a couple weeks, I think it was, for that one. Came back home, wasn't prepared to leave for a long period of time. Took care of a couple things, and then Hurricane Maria hit in Puerto Rico. I did some things at the racetrack, took care of business, and went to Puerto Rico for Hurricane Irma for 2 months of work. After all that adventure, I was hooked. When I came home and told Erika, "This is awesome," she says, "I'll clear my schedule for 2018 so I can check it out then."
Now, Steve had an amazing adventure on his first trip. He absolutely loved it. If you want to hear more of how we transitioned from selling the racetrack to going full-time RV living, you can watch the video up here. And you can also listen to the Rootless Living podcast, episode 38, to hear our interview with Damian Ross about our adventure. Now, the next big question, what do you do for hurricane relief work? What does that entail?
Well, there's many aspects to hurricane relief work. Our particular section is all about fuel. When power goes out in an area after a hurricane, major disaster happened, there's no power or electricity, so you need generators to have backup power. You need diesel fuel to power those generators. We're on the crew for diesel generators at certain situations such as lift stations or water plants.
Okay, you got to explain that. I had no idea what a lift station was at first.
Well, it keeps water flowing. You have water towers keep water flowing to the house for fresh water to drink and use at the house. And lift stations take the wastewater away from the house and put it to water treatment plants.
Yeah, so it doesn't flood up above ground. Very important. Things you don't know that are happening.
Water has to flow to and from houses for everyone to live. Also, with power in different areas, there's shelters for people that lost homes or major damages. And we'll provide power for those areas too, to take care of the basic needs and the essentials for people in those areas.
And so we're also placed generators at police stations, fire stations, hospitals, the soup kitchens, a whole bunch of different areas that need to keep the overall picture running or the infrastructure running. Another thing we need to do is wet hose vehicles. Now, they need a whole bunch of utility trucks to go out and fix the power lines. When the utility workers come back, they park their trucks in long rows, and our truck will drive between them and fill the running tanks of the trucks. That way, when the employees get back in their vehicles in the morning, they can go right out to work and they don't have to wait in long lines at a gas station.
Another version of wet hosing that we do is we'll have a fuel depot. We'll set up at a particular spot. The fuel truck will not move, and emergency vehicles will come to us. This would be Red Cross, police, fire, first responders, church cleanup groups such as Team Rubicon, and people like that will come to us after they have the authority to get the fuel from the federal government.
And they'll have ID cards, so when they come through, we have a little app that we use, and we'll take a picture of their ID card, a picture of their license plates, and it all gets ran through to make sure that we're giving fuel to the correct people.
Very important.
We both like to do the hurricane relief work, but I love to do it because it fills the void of me not being in the military anymore. We used to get to do weird stuff. I went to war, we used to go to the field, we slept in trucks, slept on trucks, slept underneath the stars, and we got to do things no one else really gets to do on a day-to-day basis, and I kind of get to do that again.
Also, the other part that makes it rewarding is helping people, making a difference. There's a big operation, we might only be a small part of it, but everyone I run into is very appreciative of what we do. Also, with doing the fueling, it requires special certifications and training to do what we do. So we do get paid, and the money is a nice bonus.
Now, Steve, for the good stuff that everyone wants to know, we're going to tell you about our Hurricane Laura 2020 experience.
Now, going off our examples from Hurricane Laura, every hurricane is completely different. If you're a recruit looking to do this work down the road, situations that we'll encounter on different hurricanes are not going to be like Hurricane Laura. I can pretty much guarantee that. Also, if you have an RV and you're looking to come on hurricane relief work, hurricanes do not accommodate RVs. Either does company you work for. Is not the normal and is not accommodated for.
And if you want to get a little bit more detailed on our story, you can go to our Instagram, Radar Road Warriors, go to our homepage, the pin story, Hurricane Laura, and you can see the pin stories, which are the highlights of our trip.
Are you ready for the Hurricane Laura story? Here we go.
Gotta relive this, baby. Remember it all. It was a lot. 50 days long.
Yes, it was. We were stationed in Michigan at the time. I was helping my brother work on his house, and it was a Sunday morning, and Barry, who we work underneath of the hurricane work, he was starting to get in place for Hurricane Laura. He texts me and says...
Not just Laura. Hurricane Laura and Marco.
Oh, yeah. Forgot
There,
about the two.
there was so many hurricanes that happened.
So he was on his way down, and he texts me and says, it's going to be big. You should get down here. So I called him to get some more details because the text was way too vague for what he needed to know. And he says, storm is getting big. We need our assets, people down here. If you're not down here in place, I can't use you when we're ready to go. So with it being a 3-day trip to get from Michigan to Louisiana with our RV and the forecast,
Yeah.
Before I started doing any work at my brother's house, I turned around, came back. Erika says, you're home a little bit early. I says, guess what?
Yeah, he was only gone for like 10 minutes.
I says, guess what? We're ready to go down for a hurricane. Pack up the RV, get the cats ready. So that's what we did. Spent the Sunday afternoon getting ready to go. It was just before dark. We headed on the road. And we know getting ready for hurricanes, there's not going to be a lot of sleep getting into that. And we have a lot of time ahead of us. The cats were like, whoa, what's going on? We're going from chilling out in the afternoon to being in the truck for a couple days. It's usually on 12-hour drive days when we're going down for a job. We have to be there very quickly. We got down to Louisiana in the morning, getting ready to get our trucks. And it's organized chaos when a storm is happening. So many things happen at once. It's very hard to get one particular thing going really fast. There's a lot of things that have to happen right now.
This hurricane was different. This is the first time we were going to stage inside of the hurricane area because all the hurricanes were coming to Louisiana, and that's where our company is located. Usually you go to Louisiana, pick up a truck, and then you drive a state away. So if a hurricane was projected to come to North Carolina, you would stage in Georgia, and then after it hit, you would drive in. But not this time. We weren't at the coast where it was going to hit the hardest. We were going to stage a couple hours in, but it was still super scary because we have everything we own in the RV and our cats with us, and we're going to go stage in a hurricane.
And as we were starting, getting ready to stage, we didn't know where we're going to go because everything is last minute because you're based on the forecast at the very last possible second. He says, we're going to go to Lake Charles. If you watch the news, Lake Charles is dead center where the hurricane is going to go.
There's Erika freaking out. I am not going to Lake Charles. I don't care what they say. I'm out of here. Like, I am not doing this.
So we almost turned around and went home, didn't even do the hurricane at all. And then it turned around a little bit. We were going up towards Alexandria for an area to stage, which was still in the cone, but it was about 90 miles off the coast.
Yeah, it was like, I think 2 hours away from the coast or 2 hours away from Lake Charles.
Which at that point, the hurricane would be a lot smaller, even though it was projected to go dead center over where we were going to stage.
Yeah, I think the hurricane winds were going to be around 50 miles an hour where we were staged, and then they were around 100, 110, 20 at the coast.
We got up to Alexandria. It was around dark. It took us to about 10 o'clock p.m. to get the truck staged and parked. After that, we had to...
10 o'clock. The hurricane's going to hit the coast at 1. Or was it hitting our place at 1? I think the winds were hitting us at 1. Anyways, it was way too soon.
After we got the truck staged, we had to do something with the RV, something with ourselves to get everything into safety. We're lucky enough, we had a hotel that accepted pets. And we talked to them and says, yes, you can bring your cats into the room. We had to pay the one-time pet fee for that. Also, there was a mall not far from the hotel that was closed down. We figured out which way the wind was coming from, parked the RV on the side of the mall that the building were protected from the wind, put all the landing gear down. We had everything full of water and fuel, so we were as heavy as possible, hoping the RV would not tip over.
And you had the truck connected to it because we walked back to the hotel.
Yes. It was a long walk. It so far it was away until I had to walk back in the dark.
Our original plan was to go drive out of the cone, but since we actually had a hotel that accepted pets, then we could stay there, so we decided to do that, and that was very scary since we were in the cone with our home.
So now we were just hours away before the hurricane is hitting Louisiana. We're in a hotel room. We took out whatever we could get out of the RV that we would be really sad if the RV blew away and we lost it. And as we got ready to go to bed, the wind started picking up. The cat started going crazy.
Diesel went nuts. He lost his stuff. I sedated him earlier, him and Daisy, because they're my two that are the most scared. Roscoe and Squeak are like, party, hotel, yay! But the other two are not. And right, like, we turned off the lights and we're trying to go to bed, and you hear meow, 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 and the wind's whipping. So I got up and sedated him again, trying to calm him down, and that took about an hour.
Between the cats meowing, being on the top floor, the wind rattling things around on the roof, earplugs, they muffled it a little bit, but it was definitely a rough night's sleep. Every time he woke up, I would check the wind and the weather and look at the security cameras, make sure the RV was still in one piece.
I was like always, oh my gosh, it's still standing upright. It looks okay outside.
So the hotel we were in is a newer remodel hotel. It had some of those fancy blinds. You push a button and the blinds go up and down. Well, it worked out great until the power went off in the middle of the night and we couldn't open the blinds to actually see what was happening outside. We did figure out a way we could clip them up with using the hangers in the hotel to see outside once daylight come out. Looked around, we seen a couple things, trees blowing over, some trim off some buildings. There was an RV parked behind a little service area just down the road from the hotel. We saw that was still upright.
Yes, it's upright. Hopefully ours is too.
Once we were able to get outside and the wind calmed down, we were safe to go outside. We walked over to the RV, checked on it.
Well, on the way, we walked over to the RV. The first thing was sad was our hotel glass door was blown off and broken everywhere. And there was a whole bunch of trim off the other hotels that were like wrapped around cars. I was like, I hope that's a rental car for that person because it's going to be all scratched up. But our area wasn't hit that bad, but it still had damage.
Which the walk over was a little bit nerve-wracking, seeing some of the things and little trees that were blowing over, and we didn't know.
And a chunk of the mall that was falling down.
Yeah, so there was actually brick walls that were blown over in some areas, even 90 miles north of the coast in Alexandria. That's how strong the wind was in some of these areas. And the results of the RV was it was in one piece, thankfully. So we walked around and checked it over and everything was good. We did not move the RV to start with because the storm had not fully passed us. There was still a chance of possible spin-up tornadoes and the wind was still gusting pretty good. But we stayed in the RV for a little bit, checked things over, got some things out of the fridge, made some lunch while we're there.
It was so nice to have the RV because the hotel room was getting really hot and stuffy. It's also, we were on the 4th floor, so you couldn't open the window, so there was no breeze. And it was getting to be back like 90 degrees, 95 once the temperature started rising. So we're in the RV with a generator running, the air conditioner going, making ice, cooking hot dogs outside, hot dogs and hamburgers.
We had our RV, which was a little bit of a pain, but we did find some benefits to having the RV there, able to cook food for our crew and have some necessities such as ice, which is really hard to find when a hurricane hits.
Yeah, we were under a boil advisory, which almost always happens with a hurricane. And I told everyone, you can have a cup of ice. We have a countertop ice maker. You give me a bottle of water and I'm going to give you a cup of ice because we needed some clean water to put in.
That was when the hurricane hit. We started off in Alexandria, working for the Army Corps on our generator mission to provide fuel for generators on critical areas that needed power. We were in our hotel room for 9 days before we lost our hotel room because hotel rooms are hard to come by. We only had them reserved for a certain amount of days. After that, someone else had them already reserved, so we didn't have a place to stay. But we did have our RV. Our company had an area set up between where our hotel was and the area that we were working, where there was water and power. We didn't have a sewer outlet source at that point, but what takeaway we can get, we had a bed.
While we were working the Army Corps, we started off on night shift. Just Steve and I, and everyone else was on day shift. And during the night shift, most of the time, we were getting trucks ready and getting everything ready for the day shift to run fuel routes. They started dropping generators. I think it got up to like 75-ish generators were out. And it's very dangerous for us to go out at night. Let's talk about the first story going down to the coast. That first night with all the power lines hanging, that was a trip.
That was a little interesting. It was our first mission out. We had a truck and we figured the headlights were not very good. After
like
we
almost
were
non-existent.
Too far committed into the route, so we had to keep going a little bit slower because we couldn't see as far ahead of us as we really needed to. Didn't know if there was a tree branch across the road signs, power lines.
So when you're driving, there's hardly any street lights, so you're not getting extra light shining on the roads where headlights were terrible.
And it was their only source of light to see the road. We had a convoy with us, the electrician crew, so we had a truck ahead of us that had good headlights, and they were using spotlights to check for wires that were close. The times we had to go across wires that the wire was a little bit off the ground, he would stand on the wire so we could cross over it without ripping off part of our truck and having issues there.
So if you picture like a secondary road or like a side road, and the wind was coming from this direction, so all the poles are over here, and all the lines are snapped. They're all dead, so they're not dangerous, but they're dangerous if they get caught on the truck. So you're trying to like, and they're not just in a row, they're all over the place. But this side of the road had some too. So you're trying to like do S curves and go through like a serpentine, trying not to hit the wires, and the wires can get caught on your truck or the mirrors. We got some mirrors ripped off. And so the electrician was trying to use a spotlight, and he'd look and be like, you have this far to go until you're going to hit the stuff. So it was, how many? It was like 9 miles or 10
9
miles?
miles off the main highway to get to our destination. It took us over 2 hours to go those miles to get there. And this wasn't just an average road where you have one set of utility lines down the road to feed some houses. This was where the main grid weaved through. So there was poles upon poles and wires upon wires. To have them rebuild this section after we saw it happen, it took them almost a month to get past this section to put it all back together. If that gives you any idea how much infrastructure we had to weave underneath on that one night going underneath the lines. As we got to the stop, finally, it was a long process for the guy that was waiting for the power to come into his water treatment plant. But once we got the power hooked up, 2,000 people received fresh water after a generator was fired up in that area. It gave you a really good sense of what we're out here doing, even though it's dangerous, even though it's a little crazy, even though we're tired, of all the people that we helped.
And he gave us some really great advice, which we didn't know, that was a secondary main road, and they clear all the main roads. And he told us how to get to the main road, so the trip back was really easy.
But as we did that a couple times, a few night missions, we went as little as possible because it was dangerous going out. One of the other missions after that.
The last night mission that we did, because Erika and Mookie freaked their stuff.
And Steve didn't know what was going on until it was almost too late.
Oh gosh.
We had...
You're just pumping fuel. We're like, snake! He has his machete out.
So we had our second interesting mission going down in the nighttime. We had to go all the way down to the coast of Louisiana. Normally you could take this route and go across the ferry, but the ferry was not operating because the hurricane went through, wiped out the structure. We went down all the way towards one side of where the canal went down, filled up a generator, and this was going through the swamp. There was lines that were down for the last 30 miles all the way there. That road wasn't too bad. The lines, you could see them, and the road was pretty open because it was a road that was already cleared. After that road, I had to go all the way back up the main highway, go back all the way down again, and we went into the area where it was Alligator Alley, we will call it.
These alligators, no one's been down these roads in a while, and I think they were like, oh, okay, cool, we can just lay all over the street. I'm sure they do it anyways, but I don't think they had their guard up.
No, and we were driving down the center of the road because we didn't know if the road was washed out on the side. We couldn't see dangers that were coming up, such as alligators or poles that were there, and no one else was on the road. So we just took up the whole road and used it for our own safety. As I'm driving along, you see alligators that are skirting off to the side this way and that way. And there was a big one that really freaked Erika out.
Yeah, it's in the middle of the road. It's Steve, I don't know if Steve didn't see it yet or whatever, and I yell, alligator! And he goes to swerve, and the thing takes off, and I swear it was going like 50 miles an hour. And at the same time, I realized how fast this alligator just moved, that there's a bike lane. Like, people ride their bikes during the day over here, and these alligators can just be like, and eat them. So I was like, I'm never getting on this truck.
No. And then we got to our destination. It was dark. We're doing this quick. We're already freaked out by the alligators. We didn't know if alligators were around or whatever things were around there. So I grabbed the hose and dragged them over to fill up the generator. Erika and Mookie, the electrician, they're like, whoa, 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 stop, stop.
Yeah, we hear this like, shh, and we're looking and we're shining flashlights, and all of a sudden this huge snake goes right into a whole bunch of black tubes that were on the ground. And so we're yelling. And we have our lights, and Mookie had just got a machete. So he's like ready to kill the thing. And we're protecting Steve so he can pump fuel into this generator, and he has no idea what's going on. I can't really explain it to him. And I'm just yelling like, snake pump!
So we survived. Had to go back up Alligator Alley to get back to our base. So we were at the Alexandria area for majority of the hurricane. Once things started calming down in the north and power was getting restored, and the main area we're concentrating on was in the south coastal area, we relocated to Lake Charles at another temporary area. This area we already had sewer figured out. So we had water, sewer, and power
with our
in the middle
macerator
of
pump.
nowhere. It was great.
Our macerator pump, which is awesome. Now during this time, I can't even remember all of them, but Louisiana was supposed to get hit with more hurricanes. Some of them were hurricanes, some were tropical depressions. There was Sally came in, Invest.
Beta came through.
Is that the one that was like Invest and then turned to Beta? Delta came in.
But once Delta came in, things got real once again. Delta was supposed to be a really big hurricane. It was projected to go in the exact same path
Yes.
that Hurricane Laura came through.
And during this time, so My mom and some of my friends are freaking out. Like, you know, there's a hurricane coming. And our phones are like, emergency, flood, you know, this, that. You couldn't miss that there was a hurricane coming through your area. But one of the texts that came through were saying to take the debris out of the ditches because they were afraid it was going to flood, because everyone has to gut their houses or they're putting everything at the road. So when the debris truck finally gets to them, they can pick it up and take it away. So that's in their ditches. And they just have some like small ditches in the area. And they wanted everything removed for the flooding. And we're just thinking of these huge debris piles that if this hurricane comes, it's going to like throw this debris all over, and all the work the people did to clean it up is going to be ruined. That didn't happen because they're kind of like more stable and the hurricane wasn't as bad. But we did get out of Dodge this time. I said, I am not staying in the cone of another hurricane. And we left, Shreveport, Louisiana?
We relocated from Lake Charles back to Alexandria area.
Lake Charles was evacuated. We actually joined the residents and evacuated with them. So that was weird.
And lo and behold, as the path was projected to be the exact same as Hurricane Laura, in Alexandria, we were dead center in the cone once again. We said, not doing this again. We looked and see which way the cone was going. The cone always kind of curves to the right. Usually you look at a map, and that's the worst side to be on because tornadoes spawn up over that way. So we looked to see where the safe area was, and we said Shreveport. It seems far enough away. If it gets to be a little bit closer, we can drive a little bit further, but this should be a good spot to go. We stayed there for 2 days as the Hurricane Delta came through the area. It did some damage again back by the coast. It hit pretty much in the same spot as Hurricane Laura did. After that passed, we went back to the Alexandria base. We worked there for a couple days.
But remember when we went there, we were trying to find somewhere to park for the first day. The road into the base was flooded. Where we stayed at that lake, that was all flooded. We were trying to get in and they put the roadblocks up and like, oh, that's where our camper was. That's all flooded. So everything was like, the water was really high that time. It went down like in a day or day and a half, but we couldn't get back to the base.
And this is a good example. Every storm is different. Hurricane Laura was major winds and moved through pretty fast, did a lot of destruction damage. Hurricane Delta, the exact same path. It had some winds, yes, but the rainfall was its major issue. So it flooded out many areas that already received wind damage, which was a double whammy for those folks in those areas. It really felt bad for them. After Delta went through, we went back to work on Hurricane Laura missions. We had a couple days left of that, and everything transitioned from Hurricane Laura work to Hurricane Delta work. So crews that were coming in place, Hurricane Delta, they took over what we left off with, and we were transitioned over to a Hurricane Delta crew working for a utility company over by Baton Rouge when they were restoring the power. Did that for 3-4 days on the utility mission, and then everything wrapped up pretty quick because Hurricane Delta was a smaller mission. There's already many crews in the area, so the restoration was pretty quick after that storm. We were gone for a total of 50 days between Hurricane Laura and Hurricane Delta. When we thought we were only going to be gone for a week and coming back home, it didn't seem like it was going to be that big of a storm at the time.
In this section, we're going to talk about what it's like to be in a devastated area. This isn't just for relief workers. This is for all the residents, anyone who's in the area. To start off, during the evacuation, most of the time everyone waits to the very last minute to evacuate because they don't know exactly where the cone's going to be and they don't want to evacuate if they don't have to. And the traffic is crazy. If you find yourself in this situation, I suggest going to the bathroom anytime you can and have food and snacks in your vehicle because you're going to be stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic. Sometimes they open up both lanes of the highway, so where one's going down, one's going up, they're their main evacuation routes and they'll run traffic each way. But when we come into some of the areas and it's traffic going each way, you know, it's like miles and miles. Once when I was
Feels like you're going the wrong way.
Yeah, it was like 22 miles we calculated, and we didn't even start at the beginning of the traffic jam, and it was just like rolling traffic jam, like 10 miles an hour, and we were like smooth sailing. You're like, should I really be driving into this area when everyone else is leaving?
As you're driving in a disaster zone, you have to be extra vigilant as you're traveling. For one, the exit signs and the road signs normally guide you along the way. They might be blown over or gone completely, so you don't know when a sharp curve is coming up, when your exit's coming up, or traffic lights are out of power or gone, not working. So you have to pay attention at intersections because people might not know you need to stop there. So you're stopping at all these intersections. It takes extra long to get places. Also, your phones might be down, which means that your GPS off your phone might not work. So you can be lost in the middle of nowhere with no signs to guide you along the way. And we use the actual GPS in these areas because we use satellite signal and we can actually find the road.
And the bigger the sign, the better the chance it is to be ripped down. Those big green exit signs on the side of the road, they're big and they're hardly around anywhere. The areas that are hit hard are always put on a curfew. A lot of times it's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That way the crews can go out and restore the power and people aren't driving around. And it's not safe at all because there's hardly any street lights out there. And when you're trying to go to a store, my advice would be look at their social media to see if they're open. Don't go to their about section that's going to give them their normal store hours. Look for a post to say like they're open from these times, they're planned to be open in a couple days. A lot of times the stores are closed. They either got damaged themselves and they can't open, their employees all evacuated, they don't have supplies, or they might have lost electricity. So a lot of times the grocery stores will not have any frozen food or refrigerated food, and all they have is like box selections. And another thing we learned, especially trying to find hotel rooms, is a lot of times you have to drive to the location to see if the hotel or the store is open because they either lost phone or internet. So the last hotel that we were staying in, they didn't have the internet to check anything that was coming in, and they couldn't answer their phones. So you had to physically drive to location trying to see if we could get our other workers hotel rooms.
And once they had power back again, it was a challenge for them. They had to go through all of the paper notes they made over the days they didn't have any power. They had to go through each room to clean them. They had to check to see if this person said they were leaving, did they actually leave, before they could make a final list on what they had available for hotel rooms. So there's quite a delay once a hotel loses power until they can take reservations again.
And everyone's trying to go to the same hotel room. All the relief workers are coming to the area, residents are leaving their homes, and once the first person is in the hotel room, they lost power, a lot of times they lost water, or they're under a boil advisory, and they don't have any way to wash sheets, so they can't bring any other people in to rent the rooms.
And in particular, in 2020, it was a COVID year, and FEMA rented hotels so they could house people to have social distancing for shelters, and that took up an even bigger portion of the hotels. So this was the first time been in a hurricane that the hotel issue was a big issue.
And if you do find a hotel, in 2018, Cody came back to our site. The first night we had to sleep in the vehicles that we rode in, and he said, I found hotels, but don't get excited. I went and bought a whole bunch of air fresheners. It's just a spot to lay down flat and to shower. There are bugs everywhere.
Oscar?
Yep. I named my little bugs in there Oscar because they were grody. So that might be the only hotels. The hotels that you would never go to, you might be like, yes, I get to stay in an Econo Lodge.
There's usually a reason why there's the last hotel that has rooms available.
Yeah.
After a disaster wipes out power in an area, many things are down and not working, such as power to gas stations, or the major demand on gas, people trying to fill up generators or their cars, and the gas station might have power but not have gas, which is the reason that we provide emergency fuel to first responders, because they can't go try to find gas because it's not available, or the lines are a mile long to try to get any gas. So we are a first source for them to get fuel. That way they can keep doing their job quickly.
Sometimes the pumps are destroyed, but the roofs over the gas station, they're always like laying down. They don't make it. It's a big wind catch. And along with gas stations too, in stores, they'll have a sign right on the door that says no ice. Ice is a hot commodity, and usually hurricanes happen when it's hot out, so people are trying to cool down and they don't have electricity, so they don't have air conditioning in their house. And there's a boil advisory, so if you go into a gas station, they might have like their pop machine, their soda machine. You can get it, but they don't have ice. They can't run the ice part because of the boil advisory, and then all the ice is sold out at the store like day one.
And one way people are trying to cool off is in their car with their air conditioning running, which means they're burning gas, which is a problem when there isn't gas available or the lines are really long. So it's very, very tricky for people in areas that are driving around to find hotel rooms or find gas and supplies, because every supply is limited. As time goes on, it gets worse and worse. Usually the first 72 hours is the worst part after a storm. You'll have a little bit of things start opening up slowly but surely. If you see a McDonald's or a fast food place open up,
And the
you know
lines
they're
are
open because the
so
lines
long.
are really, really long. People trying to get their food. It could be a 2 or 3 hour process just to pick up some lunch. In those areas, we'll have one person from our crew will go, and you're the lunch person today. You're going to go find somewhere that's open, bring back a bunch of burgers or chicken nuggets or whatever it is,
you can find.
and the rest of us can keep other fueling things going. It's a team effort, what we do.
Do you remember that time we pulled into the gas station at night just to wash the windows, and the owner came out and he says, do you have the 87? 87 octane? We're like, no, we have D fuel. You don't want this stuff. He's like, do you know when the truck's coming? We're like, we're not the gas station gas truck.
Yeah, we were just using his window washers
because the bugs were so bad.
And he thought we were coming through to fill up his tank.
Yeah, he
so
was
can
excited.
service customers. Another time I was at a gas station that didn't have any gas. You'll see people camped out literally in motorhomes at the pumps to wait for the gas station to open up next day, or the fuel truck, so they're first in line to get any fuel. There was a Waffle House next to it. I was picking up some dinner because things were closed, and Waffle House is one of the few places you can find that tries to stay open as long as possible and during a hurricane or storm in particular. They had Coke with ice or without ice, and they had a burger with cheese or no cheese. That was the two options. I took it because I was hungry and I was thirsty.
Yeah, and then on the way into our base at Alexandria, that Walmart with the gas station, they put all the lines up. Because people were like remember, like way back into the Walmart lines.
Shopping carts to make lines.
Yeah, but they were all the way into the parking spots for Walmart, and that we came in at 7, and it was probably like 150 cars ready to go trying to get fuel. So, fuel is a big thing.
And also, as you're driving around looking at these stores and you don't know what's open and what's not, you're trying to check their social media, see what's happening. But it really helps when they make the homemade signs out of whatever piece of debris, cardboard, plywood, and they say, "We are open, we have ice, we have gas," and that helps you to know what areas you can go to try to find supplies.
Yeah, broken pieces of wood and spray paint go a long way for hurricanes. Another thing you want to do is have cash on you. A lot of times ATMs don't have power, you can't get cash, but you also want to have cash in a debit or credit card. Sometimes when I go to the store, they would lose connection to the internet, so the debit credit card reader wouldn't work and they'd only take cash. Other times, their drawers wouldn't open for whatever reason and they couldn't take cash and they'd only take debit or credit card. This section is about recruiting other fuel workers. So we either told you to watch this video or you found it. So if you are interested in this, keep watching till the end.
If you are interested and qualified for doing fuel deployments, we do not hire anyone directly. We will take qualified applicants and send them along to the people that will take care of that part. Also, this video is only about fuel, so any other disaster relief resources, we do not have any contacts with them.
The ones that we do know, we'll put in the links below. A lot of people want to do Red Cross stuff or volunteer that way. We don't have any of the information. You're going to need to reach out to the Red Cross yourself to find out how you can help and plug into their system. If you're interested in this work, we want you to watch this entire video, plus look at all the links in the YouTube description below. We have some PDFs that we want you to read to make sure you understand what you're getting into, because we want to make sure that you're qualified, this is something you want to do, and we're not wasting each other's time.
The big one that they're looking for is truck drivers. You have to have a hazmat endorsement along with a tanker endorsement. Class A CDL drivers are the best, or Class B drivers work as well because sometimes you don't have to drive a tractor trailer. Also looking for fuel attendants or admin people who really have a great attitude, who want to get out there, can live in the conditions, don't have the driving skills or those technicalities, but they can do things correctly, help pump fuel, and help the big team.
To be able to be called up to even go, what happens is we get a text message that say, "Are you available?" And we respond yes or no. And then the people who say yes, that's who Barry works with directly. And you need to be able to leave with 1 day's notice. Sometimes you have more, but a lot of times the hurricane hits, the company we work for needs to fill contracts. They have to have so many people to fill that contract, and whoever can go first are the ones that are going. So if you're like, "Oh, I can go, but I can't go for 3 days," you're not going to make the first round. What this usually looks like is we'll get a text message that says, "Are you available?" We say yes or no. So say that's at 7 p.m. The next text might be at 11 p.m. that has your flight itinerary, and you leave at 6 o'clock in the morning. See, it's only a couple hours to have your bags packed. That's why it's important to have your bags packed and have your schedule cleared. And then you'll hop on the flight in the morning, you'll arrive to the area, you're either picking up a truck or you're going to have other transportation, and then they get everyone to the area to check in at 9 p.m. because that's usually in the Army Corps sites what time you have to check in. You're on the clock, and then we go stage somewhere and play it by ear for how the hurricane's going to play out.
You also need to be flexible. You might get a text and ask you ready to go when a storm's coming to the shore, and all of a sudden the storm slows down. They're not going to activate us for possibly 2 or 3 days after that, and then you'll get the text and say, "Okay, are you ready to fly out? Let's go." The people we work for are usually government entities, whether they're the state or federal government, and they're not going to pay us to be there and ready just in case. They're only going to pay us when they actually say, "Yes, we are activating you, you're going to be in place." Sometimes it might only be going for 1 day if it's need a stage and be in place and nothing happens out of the storm. Other times you might go down for a storm. The average is 2 to 3 weeks of what would happen. So if you're planning on going, you at least need to be available for the first 2 weeks. When you start a storm, if you're available for longer, is better. If you have to leave for any reason, you might have to be in a waiting list if the storm goes on for a long period of time, 50 or even 100 days or something like that, and you come back in one of the next waves.
Usually wherever they stage us is going to be away from the cone of the hurricane because they don't want their assets in the middle of it. And we'll stage about a state away, and then you'll get a call in the morning and they'll figure out where the destruction was. People are going out to survey the area, and then we load up and we'll drive somewhere. And during that, they might say, "Now you're going to drive over here," and then you're going to drive over here. You have to be flexible and not let it get to you.
very flexible, especially the first 3 days. Living conditions are going to be very, very rough. You might not have a hotel room, you might not have a sleeper cab or a crew cab truck, which means you're in a day cab, sleeping over top the steering wheel, trying to get a couple hours of sleep. There might not be any bathrooms around. The food places are not open, so if you didn't buy supplies before you got there, you're going to be hungry, you're going to be cranky. If you expect you're going to go out to restaurants to find food after a storm hits, this is not the case at all.
I'm so excited. I know it's like a thin sincere pizza, but I haven't had pizza in about 40 days, and this is one of my main food groups, so I've been lacking. With that, you want to make sure you buy supplies before you get into a devastated area. If you flew in and you get in a rental car, you get in a vehicle with somebody else, you need to stop at a store. You don't want to do it once you get to the area because the residents of that area are going to have already went to the store and took most of the food. And if you think, oh, I'll just get it when the store opens tomorrow after the hurricane hits. Well, again, the store might not be able to be open. It might not have a roof. It might have holes in it. The food might have went bad. And there's really no food to be had because supplies are not running in because the roads need to be cleared. There's a whole bunch of things. So we buy food like granola bars, cereal bars, anything that you can live off of that you don't have to heat up and you don't have to refrigerate. Food will eventually come to the area, usually around day 4, but you need to plan on feeding yourself and bringing your own food for the beginning.
And you're going to be hot. We've said it before, ice is a hot commodity after a storm goes through. Usually they're in tropical areas, which means the weather is hotter. People need ice to cool down. You try to go into a store to pick up a fountain pop, there's not going to be any ice with that if the fountain pop machines are even working because they use water to make those work. And the bagged ice in the store is going to be wiped out completely. They're not getting shipments in because everyone else is closed down. There's no power. So you're going to be hot.
All of our contracts come with hotel rooms, but sometimes hotel rooms aren't able to be had. They will put 2 people to a hotel room, but when there's only 4 hotel rooms available and there's 16 of you, guess how many people are going to be in each room? So you might be sleeping on a floor of a hotel room. Basically, you're just having a spot to sleep flat and be able to shower. But after the hurricane comes through and the water and electricity might get knocked out of that area, the water might stop and the toilets might not be able to flush. So just keep that in mind.
As you see, the theme here is you have to be flexible. Things are not going to go as planned.
And then sometimes you get a glorious hotel room. I got a handicap one. It was just me, and I'm like dancing, like, oh, I hope I can stay here the whole time. And then other times I slept with bugs.
And if you have a sleeper cab, if you're a truck driver, that is going to be your bed throughout the whole storm. They're not going to give you a hotel room if you have a bed. They will try to find a hotel room. You can use it as a shower room. So you'll go there and you'll be able to shower and you go back to your sleeper cab truck so you get somewhere to sleep.
And those they'll rotate, people in and out. They'll rent one hotel room for a shower, or they might have some kind of group shower accommodations. When we were at Mariana Airfield, they had a shower that we could use. It was like a private one for the airport, but it was a way for them to rotate everyone through. They had shower trailers too, but that way you do get a chance to shower, but it might not be your own personal shower. You want to have shower shoes.
The company does do a good job of trying to take care of people that are working with them to accommodate them, but sometimes there's no options available.
Yeah, there's just no accommodations because they all got knocked down. Because that's why you're going in to help, right?
You need to be prepared to work long days. We work at least 12-hour shifts. When a storm first hits, it can easily be a 24-hour day, especially if you have to travel to an area. Then we get put on a contract and we're working right away, trying to take care of things. Things are crazy and chaotic to start with. Sleep is going to be after the first couple days.
And you have adrenaline pumping through your body anyways. You really can't sleep. And you're really there to work and there's nothing else to do. So working 12 hours isn't a problem because it's not like you want to go back to your group hotel room and chill out with no electricity, no airflow, doing nothing in the dark. You need to be prepared for the worst living conditions and you need to bring your best attitude. And if things are better than the worst, then consider it a bonus.
And if you like to whine and complain about conditions that are not up to your standards, remember, this is not a vacation. We are here working to help people who have very bad situations they're going through. The houses are gone, they're without power. Conditions can be a lot worse than what we're usually working with, but you can't complain about it either way.
And you'll be the first one to go when they cut people, because no one wants to work with people who are whining and complaining. We're all living in the same conditions. We're all going through the same thing. This is what we signed up for, right?
Yes, you're going to bring the morale of the team down. No one wants to work with a Debbie Downer. We tell you all the bad stuff because we don't want to work with people who complain.
We don't want to paint a pretty picture that's not going to happen for you.
We only work with rock stars. If you're someone who normally utters these following comments during your normal workday, this job is not cut out for you.
Yeah, emergency fueling, no. You can't handle this. You say things like, I already worked my 12 hours for the day. Why do I have to work longer than them? This is not in my job description. This is not what I signed up for. Again, if you say that stuff on a normal day-to-day basis, don't sign up for emergency fueling.
Everyone who's coming to work a disaster relief area needs to have a positive attitude, a good work ethic, be a team player, be willing to work with a diverse group of people to put things together and work towards one main goal.
And you have to have the right gear. So many people come, you're coming to a hurricane area. Yeah, a lot of times the hurricane's over, but what happens in a hurricane? Rain. And you're like, I don't have a rain outfit. I don't have a poncho. I need to go buy one. There's not a poncho in stock anywhere after the hurricane hits. You need to have all the gear, and that's what we have linked in the YouTube description below to make sure that you're prepared when you come to the hurricane.
And a happy worker is always a good worker.
If you're interested in being on the field deployment list, make sure you watch this entire video and look at all the documents in the link below. And email us. Don't leave a comment on this video because a lot of times we don't get notified about the comments and we're not going to know it's there.
If all of this sounds too harsh for you and too much work, you're not cut out for the hurricane deployment. And it's good you figured it out now before you got in the middle of a situation that you can't get out of. Now, if it sounds like a great adventure for you and you're rip-roaring and ready to go, make sure you follow all the information and send us an email. I look forward to talking to you.
Yep, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye guys. I think she's looking at me.
I gotta move Daisy. I cannot concentrate with a cat poop spray happening.
Oh gosh. I can't choke through this last section.
Roscoe?
All the background noises are going to happen. Cat food crunching, cat poop. Ah.